Welcome back, everyone. Today we have a special guest. We're joined by Jay Bousada. Jay is the CEO and founder of ThrillWorks. It's a highly decorated, award-winning digital agency that he started 26 years ago. So Jay grew up in Quebec, is bilingual, holds a structural engineering degree from the University of Western Ontario, and has appeared on the Profit 500 multiple times. So he's also a member of EO, and his Chamber of Commerce has repeatedly honored him for his achievements. So Jay believes strongly in CEO-led sales, and that CEOs should stay hands-on in new business development. So thank you, Jay, for joining us. Super excited here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So you've been in business for quite some time, right? But why don't you take us back to the beginning? Like, what's the story of how you first got started and what was your very first sale?
Sure. I'm going to date myself by doing this, but you've already said I've been doing this for 26 years. But back in the early 90s, I was going through university to get an engineering degree, and that gave us access to an engineering computer lab. And that was my first exposure to the internet. And it kind of blew my mind. I couldn't believe that all the computers of the world could be interconnected and chat with one another. And so for the rest of my time at university, I just obsessed over figuring out everything I could and understanding the internet. And when I graduated and got my first engineering job, first thing I did was register for night school so I could learn how to program for the web. That took about a year, and I picked up a couple contracts from local agencies along the way. And maybe 2 years after that, my engineering boss called me to his office one morning because I'd been working for an engineering firm at that point for about 4 years. And he said, "Hey, good news. We want to give you a promotion from engineering to sales, but you got to move across the country for the next 3 years and make a commitment to us." And I said, "Thanks very much, but I have to quit." And of course, he freaked out and he's like, "No, you don't have to quit. You can keep your engineering job." Mm-hmm. And I said, no, it's not about the promotion. I've started a company called ThrillWorks, at nights and on weekends. And I know that if I don't give it my all right now, I probably never will. So thanks for the job. But I'm going to resign and, here's to take my 2 weeks. And I went home later that day and told my wife, who was 9 months pregnant at the time, that I had just quit my engineering job spontaneously to run ThrillWorks full time. And that was a lot scarier than quitting with my boss. But we made it work. And as for my first sale, that was probably not the first sale, but the first significant notable sale that we made probably came a year into running ThrillWorks. So we was working for a few small agencies that were sending me contracts in the Toronto area. And then a friend of mine said, "Hey, can you meet a colleague? I think he needs what you do, but I don't really understand." And I said, "Sure." So took the meeting at this fella's office. They signed me in, walked me from reception over to the meeting room. I spent 2 lovely hours chatting with 3 lovely people, and they walked me back to the front desk, said, "Thanks very much." He said, "Do you mind if I walk you to your car?" I said, "No." So we're halfway across the parking lot, and he says, "So how much?" I said, "How much for what?" He said, "How much to build my site?" I had to admit at that point, I said, "I don't really know what site we're talking about," right? Because we didn't get specific about the site in the conversation. He said, "Well, petrocanada.com. And I said, "The corporate Petro-Canada site?" And he said, "Yeah." Now, of course, I don't want to look like I'm freaking out, but I'm freaking out at this point because I own this company that's, 3 employees and 1 year old. And I gave him a number and he thought about it. And he said, "I'll tell you what, double that and start Monday." Oh, so we started, and that relationship led to many great things. And it lasted 12 years until Suncor bought them out. And it was great. I mean, we learned a lot really fast. It was an 8,000 page website that was bilingual. And back in the day, you had to code all that by hand. And then we got into all kinds of fun technologies from that point forward. And that was the first big sale.
That's huge. So why do you think he said double it up?
Because my number was so ridiculously low. I mean, we'd been selling, 15 page websites or little brochure websites. The internet was largely just brochureware at the time. Mm-hmm. But I had no idea how big that site was. And I think he did. So when I gave him a ridiculously low number, he was like, "I appreciate that, but I know you're," and he was always fair from that point forward. And it was a huge growth experience to sell at a corporate level. And that was our first large corporation that we dealt with. and learned a lot of lessons from it. And those lessons continue to serve us today. So
Congratulations. So
thanks.
when you're looking at your business today, though, what does growth mean to you? And it can mean a lot of things. It's totally dependent on, your values and your goals. But is it revenue, market share, team size, something else? What's growth mean to you today?
That's a great question. And it's kind of an odd answer. All those things are important. Obviously, we need many of those things or all of those things. I've never really been one to worry about headcount. I figure, we size the company for the work that we have, and we make sure that we don't carry a bench. So it's never been about headcount. Carrying a bench, which is just extra people in a professional services firm so that you can leap on the next opportunity, never really works out, because what are the odds that the next project you get is going to require exactly who you have sitting on the bench? And so carrying a bench just means you inflate your costs that everyone has to pay. So we don't really subscribe to that. It requires maybe a slight delay in starting the next project because we have to build the right team, but it served us well for 26 years. The growth for me, I think, has always meant trying to achieve a certain level of gravity or reputation where other firms in our space feel the pressure of how ThrillWorks does business, because their clients say to them, what's your version of doing what ThrillWorks does? And there's lots of specialty firms, so we're not for everybody, but I want to have a large enough organization where our reputation precedes us, and that is how we manage our customers. And we try to always help a client get what they need, not always what they're asking for up front, because oftentimes what they think they need is not what they need to get what they want. And so the first thing that we do is really diagnose what they really need to get what they ultimately want. And it's a bit of an odd approach. A lot of other agencies or firms that I've worked with are just happy to give a customer anything they ask for, whether that customer needs that or not. And we've often been brought in to solve that problem, take over from another agency to say, we're spending a lot of energy and dollars and we're not getting the results that we want. And we'll come in and point out exactly what the problem is and say, it's not very sexy, but fix that first. Your technology, say, for example, can't bear the weight of the marketing initiatives that you're putting on top of it.
Awesome. So when you look at the next 3 to 5 years, though, there's tons of changes. What's your vision for sales in the next 3 to 5 years?
So we have two goals. One's aspirational, and we usually don't talk about that one in public. And one is a committed goal. That committed goal is one that we're 100% committed to. So come hell or high water, this is what, ThrillWorks will make the pivots we need to and figure out what sacrifices we have to, but we stay the course when we have a committed goal. And our committed goal is to triple the size of the company as of 2 years ago. So we're on track for that. And we plan on getting there in the next 5 years. So, it was a 7-year plan to triple the size of the company, because we think at that size, we'll have enough of that reputation to have customers in the marketplace going, I like the philosophy that I hear over here. Even if they have their own agency, they can say to their agency, how do we do more of what I hear ThrillWorks doing? And I think it serves the customer well. It's not a vanity thing by any stretch. I oftentimes, will say to some of our partners that we do business with, so we resell software for enterprise software for some of our customers, bring us in, on a pitch, and you don't even have to mention our name if you're not prepared to start introducing partners by name. I just want to have the right influence on the customer that you're selling so that they get the right outcome. And that's how we end up with relationships that last 12 plus years in this space, which is very uncommon. I think most marketing firms have a relationship that lasts 3 to 5 years at most, and ours are double digits.
Amazing. Yeah. That's a common challenge I hear from marketing firms. It's not easy, but they sometimes don't have trouble getting the client, but keeping it is a harder in marketing agencies, because sometimes they're what they were expecting didn't really kind of turn out. So actually, how do you keep clients? Is it service? Is it, sales? How are you able to keep clients for so long compared to marketing agencies?
We have a philosophy, a little process that we start with called the break check, because I'm a firm believer that throwing more horsepower at anything, so buying more traffic or running another campaign, is ultimately destined to fail if you've got, an inhibitor somewhere inside the business. So if you got the brake, if you're pressing the brake in your car, the more you push on the gas pedal, all you're doing is using more gas and burning out your engine, right? So what we want to do is like find that spot where we can get your foot off the brake so your gas pedal delivers more for you. And so in that metaphor, in our case, your marketing campaigns or your initiatives will go a lot further if we figure out, what the bottleneck for a particular organization is. So that's the first thing that we do. It's kind of unconventional, and it certainly catches everyone's attention inside the organization when you say to somebody, like, the first thing we have to do is go over here and, like, remove that inhibitor, and then we'll let you spend a bunch of money. And a lot of times we've been told directly by the customer after the fact, we thought you were crazy, because we'll turn down like an opportunity sometimes. So when Tim Hortons came to us, and I noticed you're drinking a roll up the rim, we used to do all the digital for Tim Hortons for years before they were bought by a South American company. And we basically brought their roll up the rim online, and we refused to take on the project 3 times. And they came back in the 3rd time and they said, that we're Tim Hortons. And frankly, you're a little agency that has what we want, but are you crazy? Like, this would be good for you. And we said to them, we're that serious about making sure that you do it right. And here are the things that we need to do that make it right. After we got through it, they admitted, like, we thought you were nuts. BlackBerry, the same thing. When we were working with them, they said, like, we couldn't believe that you turned us down. They came to my office after I turned them down to say, like, we had to run this by you again because we weren't sure that you were like serious about this.
Did you fall? Did you hit your head?
Pardon me?
Probably wondering if you fell or if you hit your head or something.
Exactly. Exactly. So we overservice them. I believe in creating fanatical customers. And so you do that by giving them a lot of good service. You act like the expert in this field. Don't make them become the expert to ask for the thing that they need. That's what they hire us for. Right. So be proactive. And then it all starts with listening, and it's magical. And it's so obvious when somebody's going to hear this. I'm sure they're going to, like, not think twice about what I just said. Right. But if you can slow down and give a customer a good listening to, and then more than that, convince them that you just heard them by repeating back what they just said, now all of a sudden they're super open to influence, and you can take them where they need to go, assuming you have, the desire to do that. You can take them where they want to go because they'll listen to you, but you got to start with listening. So a combination of these things repeated over and over is what I think has really served us for the last 26 years.
Awesome. Yeah. Active listening isn't just listening and writing notes. It's, as you said, repeating it back and getting confirmation that what you're hearing is correct.
Exactly.
Very, very good. Very good. So, okay. So you're a marketing agency. So what is working best for you for generating leads now, whether it's generating leads for yourself or for your clients? Like what's working now, and how have you noticed how it's changed since you first started?
So when we first started, I think there was some novelty, and it was not by intention on my part, but there was some novelty in selling complexity. So the internet was like mysterious and it was complex, and people liked the allure of the complexity of it. They didn't necessarily want to deal with the complexity, but they thought there was something important to dealing with complexity. I think it's gone the 180 degrees in the opposite direction now. I think the thought of anything complex is the quickest way to scare somebody away. And I don't care what you're selling, or, it's certainly in what we do. We go to great lengths to make what we do easy to buy and easy to use. And again, it sounds super obvious, but I don't think there is any, mysterious or deep, dark secrets to, like, doing things, getting the fundamentals right. If you get the fundamentals right, everything else will follow. And I think, so we have a hyper focus right now for our customers and for their customers on making sure everything's simple. So the solutions that we build aren't just websites, it's portals, it's online contests, it's applications. The simpler we make that process for them, for our customers, the better. And the simpler we make the tools that we build to use, then their customers will benefit. So we work for one of the national banks. And the first thing that we did, as an example, when we walked in, they said, we have absolutely no shortage of awareness. So we have 40,000 visitors a month showing up to our site, applying for our credit card. And we have a single digit number of customers converting. What the heck is going on?
Yeah.
And we made three simple, obvious changes, and they were all user interface changes. And we said, let's just make this change before you ask us to drive more customers at this funnel, because you don't need more customers in the funnel. We just need to improve the conversion rate. And within like 3 months, we had the number in double digits, and it climbed from there. So, but everybody thinks that you need more traffic, and we kind of look at the other bottleneck, like where are you applying the brake unintentionally? And in their case, there were simple signals on the screen that were causing people to, abandon the process early or accidentally exit the process, and then they were like upset and wouldn't go back and start the process over because the application was like a multi-step process, and they'd be like, forget it. And that's not an uncommon story. So if you put barriers in the way of anything, so in our case with our customers, when I'm trying to sell something that's as complex as an enterprise solution, that can take a year to deploy, the last thing I want to do is introduce complexity for them, or make it hard for them to understand. So making it easy to buy is the biggest solution that we've come up with, and easy to use once you own it.
Interesting. Okay. So that's incredible that you're able to, flip that over pretty quickly. So, okay. So things are going up. You got killer deals coming in. You're working with big banks, but every business has a messy middle, right? No one's perfect. So can you share a time where a deal, a hire, or even a strategy, it didn't go the way you planned, but what did you learn from it?
Yes, we call our messy middle the awkward teenage years. So, when we hit year 12 or 13, so sometime around 2012, 2013, the company had reached a certain size, and I didn't have any business training. And for those first 13 years, I was, chief salesperson, chief, lead developer, customer service person. And we'd reached that point where I was like, okay, I've just read a really intelligent book called The E-Myth, and it talks about working on your business instead of in your business. And I was completely sold on this idea. And I swung the pendulum way too far to the wrong side of things. And I started working exclusively on the business and no longer in it. It took about 5 or 6 years before I realized what a stupid idea that was, because what I had essentially done was abandon our customers, and I just stopped staying in touch with the market and our customers and the solutions that we were offering, the services we were offering, the way we were, performing our services had fallen out of sync with what our customers were looking for, because it's such a dynamic industry. You've got to stay in touch with the customers. So once I figured out, things have gotten a lot harder and it's a lot less fun, and customers seem less happy than they have been. Probably 2018, 20 or 2019. And figuring out, what we were doing wrong it wasn't like flipping a light switch. So it took a few months of exploration to say, why has this gotten so hard all of a sudden? And then correcting it took another 2 years. And of course, COVID was going on during this time. So it was a little bit harder under the best of circumstances during COVID. So once we figured out, once I figured out I had to stay in touch with the customers and in the market and not just work exclusively on the business, things got a whole lot better. And we're back to having a lot of fun with what we do and pleasing customers with a lot less effort.
So maybe not recommend that book to fellow business owners?
Well, don't go crazy the way I did with it. So read it and find some happy balance. So, work on your business, but in your business as well. Stay in touch with your customers and stay in touch with the marketplace if you're the leader of the company.
Totally. Got it. Thank you. All right. So lots of things are happening in the economy and the market. It seems like it's just never stopping. There's always something new. So looking ahead in the next 1 to 2 years, 12 to 24 months, what's the biggest growth transformation opportunity you see, as well as the biggest threat that you foresee on the radar?
I bet you if I pause here for 5 or 6 seconds, everybody listening is going to say the exact same thing, which is going to be my answer. And that is AI. And I know it sounds like the obvious answer, but it both thrills us, pun intended, but it also terrifies us. There's so much change, and it changes so quickly. I think one of the things that we're doing is not just using it randomly inside the company. We use it, we're trying to create a strategy. We're standing up committees inside the company to figure out at all levels inside the company how the different areas of the business need to apply that strategy most effectively, because we have several layers inside the company. We have everything from sales to strategy to creative to front-end developers and back-end developers and quality assurance. So every one of them can use it independently, certainly. And, there are ways to do that without risking the company's privacy or our clients' privacy. But at the same time, if we don't orchestrate its use, then all we're doing is like speeding up some of the mistakes that we can make or creating silos inside the company. And we work really hard to make sure that we don't have silos, because we're like a hockey team. We need to be like one united group, not just like a bunch of individuals working independently from one another. It's incredible what it can do when you orchestrate and coordinate properly inside an organization. There's a lot of work that has to happen to make sure that you organize your information properly, so you're going to get the most from it. And I think a lot of businesses, the risk, and we've seen this, all you have to do is, Google, AI use gone wrong. You'll see a lot of enterprises that have rushed to fire a bunch of their staff thinking they can replace them, only to then have to rehire because they realize like that's not the way it works with AI. There may come a time where you can actually replace huge amounts of people, but right now I think it's as much a powerful tool as it is a risky tool. And what the business does with it really comes down to like, are you trying to use it intelligently? And if you don't know how to use it, just start. It's like anything. You can't read enough about it to master it. You have to start using it and do so wisely, because you can certainly like violate some of your privacy expectations if you don't use it wisely. So get some advice from somebody who knows if you're too afraid to start, but start is my advice.
Definitely. Yeah, you got to start, but this is how I see it. Humans, how we interact each other hasn't really changed over the last thousands of years. Our brains are basically the same, but the technology has changed. So back to your point, just wiping out massive groups of people and replacing it with AI, that's hilarious to me. So I just see it as temporary. I see it as a temporary project. Like a lot of these big four firms are publicly talking about how they're replacing a lot of their staff with AI. And I don't think it's I don't think they see it as permanent. I think they're testing it out. And I agree with you. I think they're going to see that at the end of the day, especially when it comes to sales, bigger ticket items, longer selling cycles, multiple decision makers, competing agendas, competing departments. You have to be a human being. Like I'm not going to talk to a bot to make $150,000 deal. Like, let's be honest. And I find that a lot of these websites, this is just my opinion, I'm sure there's a lot of people that share the same sentiment, that how you're like talking to a bot. It's just that cheapens it. I don't want to talk to a bot. So yeah, there's definitely a fine balance. You want to make sure you're ahead of it, but at the end of the day, like don't forget about the human skill of how to interact as a human, how to have effective conversations, how to ask effective questions, right? So that's interesting.
Buying is a real, dare I say, not just personalized, but or personal. It's an almost intimate experience when you're buying, especially big purchases. Some of it can be transactional. I think, we can all go to Amazon and buy something really, really quickly, but I think we all forget just how much we trust Amazon, and that trust factor, wasn't built overnight. And so I think when you're buying, buying from a machine, especially if you don't have any pre-existing relationship with that organization, it's not going to happen. And I think getting people to use it wisely is, and I don't just mean for the purchasing, but also inside any organization, right? How do we use it effectively to sell without deteriorating or diluting the relationship we're trying to build with somebody? And I think it's a tough balance. And I think people are going to have a hard time with it because it is so powerful. I can imagine that some people are going to have a bit of a crisis of conscience to use it, because it can make your job easier. And if we free you up from some of the repetitive tasks, somebody's going to have a problem and say, well, am I working hard enough if I can do what I used to do in 8 hours and I can do it in 5? Am I cheating? You're not cheating. Mm-hmm. Like, find a way to create value at those other 3 hours, right? There's no glory in working harder if there's a way to do our job and then find extra room for more value that we can add. And I think there's no better way to add value than to figure out how to service your customers. It always pays off.
Right. So you're a well-known, successful marketing company, but how are you approaching sales effectiveness? Because sure, I'm sure you're getting leads. I'm sure you have a lead management system. You're getting tons of business referrals and stuff like that. But when it comes to the actual going out to say hunting for new business or expanding business, where it's not just service, it's not just solutions, it's where you actually have to, do a deep discovery. How do you approach sales effectiveness training and development for your team and for yourself?
Great question. So, speaking of professionals like you who are in the industry certainly helps, or partnering with firms like yours. I think understanding your customers, as much as I'm going to go back to, there's not a lot of new insights that I can provide, right? The fundamentals are the fundamentals for a reason. So going back to one of those fundamentals is, do you know who your customer is? Do you know what their problems are? And do you know how to solve them? Do you have any proof that you can solve them? Uh, can you communicate effectively with your customers at the right time? So oftentimes, when we've made a hiring mistake in the sales area, we have somebody who's too eager to close the sale and they're trying to rush it. And a customer, trying to buy something that it can't be returned because what we build doesn't get returned, right? It's bespoke solutions. Gets scared off by something like that. And so a few things that we do to train internally here. I head up the sales team, and there's a lot of mentoring that goes on. There's a lot of experience sharing that goes on. We do a lot of our communication now digitally, like we're doing right now. And so we ask our customers during that process, do they mind if we record the conversation? And then like a good football coach, we watch the game footage with the team after and say, what did we do right? And what did we do wrong? And how would we do this differently? And how do we institutionalize the things that work and the knowledge, and how do we share that? And we use AI for some of this to process large amounts of this data. So there's an example of how we use it inside the company.
Media coaching and feedback, which is amazing, right?
Yeah. But I think knowing who your customers are allow you to hunt where your customers are. So, if we want to deliver a message to a set of customers that have gathered, we'll go to a conference and speak at that conference about what we know is troubling them. And so we try to use that knowledge, really effectively and wisely, and not just be haphazard. We have a differentiator, and we're clear on what that differentiator is. I talked a little bit about one of our differentiators with, our break check. So we go into a customer and we say, before we're going to let you start spending money with us, we want to find out where your bottleneck is. Because until we clear that, all the money that you want to spend to drive more traffic at your lead generation form or your credit card application is still trying to fit through the eye of a needle. Why don't we broaden the eye of the needle? And that's news. It's, if customers knew, like I said, what they needed to get what they want, then they wouldn't need professionals outside the organization. They would just do it. So our job is to help them understand. And when you do that, it makes selling a whole lot easier. So that's a technique that we're using.
Amazing. All right. So when it comes to hiring salespeople, honestly, they can be some of the hardest to hire, because oftentimes they can look good on their resume. You could have an interview with them, have conversations with them, and they look even better in the interview. But oftentimes when they're actually out on the field and they have to do the sales behavior, that can be uncomfortable for some people, calling on people that are not expecting to hear from them, asking penetrating questions to find out buyer motivation, right? Some people feel uncomfortable probing questions when they're speaking with prospects. So that said, that can definitely affect, bad hire, bottom line. Hiring salespeople can be the hardest to hire. So what are some of your challenges that you've experienced so far? And what are you looking for in a salesperson? Like, how do you set them up? So yeah, two-part question. What are some of the challenges that you have when hiring salespeople? And B, what are you looking for in a salesperson?
Great questions. So we have published values, internally published. I think we also share them on the website, but they're very deep because they're not meant to be seen by anybody that doesn't want to explore end to end. So that's usually somebody looking to join the organization. That's why we publish those, because what we want to do is attract those people who share our 4 values. We only have 4, not 8, because we actually want to live them. It's hard to live 8 simultaneous values. You're always going to be, with every choice, you're going to be violating one of them if you have too many values. So ours are courage, curiosity, passion, and teamwork. And so when we're hiring, we want to hire for those things. We firmly believe in hiring for character and then training for skills. I think because we want to train in the way that we do things here. If you bring some skills that overlap with the way we already do things, great. But what we want to make sure of is you have the character that we're looking for. So will you take the time to listen to a customer, and can you empathize with their situation? Even though we sell usually to committees, there's rarely a single decision maker in our world. So when we're selling enterprise custom solutions, they have to bring that back to a committee. But there is still a person in the mix, and that person has ambitions. They have a career that they're trying to protect and do good things with. So if our sales team can't understand that that person has objectives for their own career, meaning they don't want to make a bad decision and buy something recklessly and be rushed to purchase, that staff member is probably not going to make a good salesperson for us, because we do want to slow things down. We do want to make things simple. And when I say simple, I don't mean dumb things down. I mean, take the time to understand what level of technical awareness or marketing awareness our particular prospect has, and meet them where they're at, even if that takes 6 months or a year of conversation. In some cases, I've been speaking to clients for 2 years before they turn into customers. They're just not ready to buy. But when they do, they're fanatical. And then when we continue to deliver with that same attitude, they're not surprised because, we land the business and then we become a different company. So the mistakes that we've made is rushing because we need to hire somebody quickly. The mistakes that we've made is, ignoring our gut and saying, well, they don't seem to have the character traits that we're looking for, but maybe we're just, because we're too enticed by their skills. That has rarely, if ever, I can't think of a case, but it's rarely worked out well. So we try to hire for character and then teach the skills that we need.
Interesting. So you're not as much looking for someone so much in the industry, or you are generally when you hire?
No, I don't care what industry they come from, honestly. Like, we can teach a lot of these skills, because when we're selling, we're usually not selling to somebody who understands the depth of the technology that we deploy. We're selling to an executive who needs us to understand what their goals are, even if those goals aren't, immediately like translatable into a specific deliverable. They might say, for example, we've got to get better brand awareness, or, no matter how much money we spend, we can never seem to, change the results that we get on the bottom line. Like, I don't understand what the problem is. If we jumped in and started talking about, the fundamental flaw with the technology that they've got in place causing that problem, we'd lose the executive. What they want to hear is, we've got an answer. We've done this before. Let me show you. Some of our customers, the ones that are more challenger kind of clients, they want to be challenged in return. And so, we'll put a challenge forward to them that says, like, if you're tired of wasting money on marketing campaigns that aren't delivering, now you're speaking their language. But we've got to figure out who we're talking to and quickly figure out what their problem is. And the only way that we can do that legitimately is through that listening skill I was talking about earlier. So we really need to make sure that when we're hiring somebody who's demonstrated listening skills, and you can pick that up pretty quick in an interview.
Definitely. And one of the strategies that I always followed, especially when it came to hiring salespeople, is hire slow and fire fast.
Yeah.
Make sure you do the steps. Don't hire off intuition, though that matters. Your experience matters, but use some type of data-driven process to really understand what's going on beneath the surface. Because sales, you're dealing with people's anxieties, fears, emotions, values, right? It's not so much customer service. It's where they have to practice their skill. And they're not going to come up to you and say, "Hey, I feel anxious reaching out to someone who's not expecting. I feel nervous calling on this." They're not going to tell you that. They may not even realize it themselves. So it's important in our world to really do a deep dive to understand through assessment tools, is to understand if what you're dealing with. What types of anxieties do they have that's going to prevent a very motivated, coachable, trainable, hungry salesperson from doing what they know they should do, and enough of it, right? And if you can identify that, you can coach that out easily. But if you don't identify it, you don't know what to do. And, not to mention, are they actually motivated to grow? Are they motivated to take direction? Are they oppositional? No matter what you say, they're always going to retort it back. Or do they have the skills, and are they willing to develop the skills? So, yeah, there's a lot that goes underneath what you see on salespeople for face value. That's the tip of the iceberg. But if you go think of an iceberg, the real body is underneath the water.
Yeah.
And it's important to get a clear insight of really what you're dealing with, because the cost of a bad hire, especially with salespeople, oof. And not to mention, you got to offboard them. So there's a lot of time and money and wasted resources. So that's awesome that you have a process to set them up for success.
Yeah, and setting the right environment too, right? If somebody does have some anxiety, the environment that supports them saying, I'm feeling a little anxious about this. I don't think I know this material well enough, right? Like, can we rehearse a little bit more? You want that environment so they come clean.
Right.
Because without that, they're going to try to hide their insecurities. And it's very difficult to try to read somebody's mind. We haven't figured it out. So, if you got to do some of the things that you just said, train them on how to do the things that are causing the anxiety. Or train them to avoid the anxiety. You've really got to have an environment where somebody can confess, like, I'm not sure how to do this. I'm not sure I'm clear enough on this. Can I get some more training? Can I get a little help? Obviously, when you put that effort in, it has to pay off. But I love the idea of hire slow and fire fast.
Yeah, definitely. And you'd be surprised that when you assess some of these salespeople, there's certain assessment tools where they'll say, "I need help in prospecting. I need help in effective question asking. I want to get better in, time management or strategic planning." Right. So there are ways that they can actually tell you what they need help in, and coaching, training, mentoring, and supervising to help them overcome that pretty quickly. So. And I'm sure you're using tools that help identify that as well. But when thinking about your own leadership, right, which is, it's all, unfortunately, it all starts at the top, right? What they say is the only thing that's stopping you from growing your business is probably the leaders, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So what's been the hardest adjustment that you have made as the company grows in terms of your own leadership?
Certainly finding that balance I was talking about earlier, working in the business versus working on the business, and then growing into the role of a CEO who's managing a larger and larger organization. I mean, when we were, 3 or 4 or 8 people in the first few years, you're literally looking at everybody in one room. You're all working on things and you can track everything in your head. And so you don't need systems. You don't need to figure out how to set up an organization. You don't need to understand what people are thinking or whether they're happy in their roles and their jobs. But as the organization grows, you as the leader, or me as a CEO in this case, really has to figure out how to constantly be evolving my role. And so I am part of an organization, as you mentioned off the top, called the Entrepreneurs Organization. It's a great organization. It's a global organization. There's chapters everywhere in the world. They pair you with other entrepreneurs. So I meet with a group of between 7 and 10 entrepreneurs, depending on the size of the group you're assigned to. And we meet once a month and you really bare your soul. It's almost group therapy for business owners. And you talk about some of the challenges, and other people have faced those challenges, or other people can help you brainstorm on those. I also have a leadership coach. They're not a business coach, they're a leadership coach. And it literally is an exercise once a week of talking about how I'm showing up as a leader, what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong. And, if we've hit a glass ceiling, why, and, what's standing in the way, and what might I be doing to stifle the organization or accelerate the organization. So it's, I've gotten it wrong more often than I've gotten it right. But thankfully, we have enough momentum and good customers and great team members where, if you notice it quickly, you can react quickly and recover quickly from anything that you do wrong. But being self-reflective on that leadership is such a good question. I think it's what all leaders need to be doing constantly inside any organization, no matter how big it is.
I read an article somewhere, I think it was Money Sense or something like that. So we're in the business of leadership training as well. So kind of just to ground what I'm about to say is, a lot of people that are promoted into, and this doesn't have to do with you, but a lot of people that were promoted into leadership roles, they often were very successful in their own individual contributor roles, right? So they're very successful. So they were promoted to senior leadership or management roles. But the funny thing is there's not a lot of training for management or leadership.
Agreed.
It's completely different. It's because you're dealing with people's emotions, their values, their desires. You're not just training, you're coaching, you're mentoring, you're supervising, right? So evidently there's a lack of leadership training in the business world. Lots of individual contributor skills training, but management and leadership training, that's where people fall short. So it's interesting that you're sharing that you do have a leadership coach specifically for leadership, because it's completely different. Like, it's completely different.
And just let me double back on something that you said earlier, right? When somebody has anxiety, they're not necessarily going to confess it. If you're supposed to be a leader with all the answers, and if somebody thinks that a leader has all the answers, or if that's what you think your job is, you're certainly not going to say to anybody, I don't know what I'm doing. I could use a little bit of help. So, the higher up you get inside an organization, the harder it sometimes gets to say, I don't know, I could use a little help on how to do this job. So again, to create an environment where a leader could say, I could use a little bit of training because I was good at doing the thing, but overseeing the thing is new to me and I'd like some help and support. So, if you have leaders listening to this, one of the things that I've had a lot of success with is trying to create the environment. That's something that's within your control. Create the environment where people can say, I don't know, I could use a little bit of help, so that you can give it to them, because great things will happen. And your A players love it. They love being able to succeed. And if they're struggling and fear that they can't ask for help, then your A players leave and you don't know why.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. And it's often starts at the top, right?
Yep.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, this has been lots of really good information here, but I would like to as we come to an end of this interview, my favorite question is, like, realistically, if you could really give one piece of advice to an Ontario business owner who's just hit a growth ceiling, what would that be?
Great question. I think I'm going to steal something Jim Collins said. He wrote so many great business books. And he said, you can't make it right with the wrong people. And by that, I mean, I have, at a few points in my career, underestimated the importance of getting real A players in the key seats inside the organization. Sometimes, you leave somebody in the seat that they're not performing in, or you fill a seat that you should otherwise leave vacant with the wrong person because you were in a hurry and you thought that seat needed to be filled. I think to the extent that you can actually staff yourself with the right people, those right people won't only do their job well, but they help you do your job well as well. So I think that's really, really important. So look around and ask yourself, if that person wasn't already in that seat, would I hire them again today for the role that they're doing? And if not, it means, is there a better role suited for them? And if there's no better role, then best that you exit them, because it's been my experience that one of the greatest tools to get rid of A players is to let B and C players stick around. They'll chase the A players away. So staff yourself with A players. There's plenty of evidence about the benefits of that. Again, it's not rocket science. That's just well-known fundamentals. And then lean into AI. Start playing around with it. Even if you just have it help you write some emails, or if you have it, help you with your spreadsheets, start so that the anxiety or the fear or the mystery of it disappears. Yeah. It's not magic. It's not going to solve all your problems. But if you fall behind, catching up is going to be 100 times harder than to start playing with it now. So set aside 1 hour a week. That's all it takes. Those two things, A players and use the latest technology, I think give businesses an unfair advantage over those that don't do those things.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Yeah, like you can't, as much as you try, especially a lot of people are very motivated and they really want to help people, especially in a leadership or management team. They're really motivated to help them. But adults learn differently than students, right? Like there has to be some type of repercussion if the behavior outline that we agreed on is not happening. And it sucks. And that's what part of being a leader is. You're going to have to let people down gracefully, right? But at the end of the day, if you can't force an adult to do something, right? It's not like school. It's not like university. It's not, there's no safety net. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So
My leadership coach often says, you can't want it for somebody more than they want it for themselves. And as a leader, when you like your colleagues, sometimes you want their success for them more than they want it. And you try to encourage them or force them to do the things that would help them. And to the point that you just made, if you want it for them more than they want it for themselves, it's just an unhealthy, enabling relationship. It's not a mentoring, thriving relationship. So I couldn't agree more.
Not to mention, they may infect the other team members with their oppositionality. And they
Exactly.
may do it when you may not even realize it, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, didn't mean to end it on a negative note, but no, it's awesome. It seems like you're putting a lot of investment in professional development, not only yourself but your team members as well. So we love to hear that, right? Coming from a Sandler training franchise, we love to hear how leaders are investing in themselves and the development of their team. So thank you for that. It was a pleasure. Thank you, Jay, for being here. There's going to be a lot of marketing and agencies and the like companies that are going to get a lot of information from this podcast. So I appreciate you sharing your insight and knowledge, and it was a pleasure.
I really enjoyed it. Thanks very much for having me.
Thanks, Jay.